Hey everyone, it's Laurel, and I'm super excited for today's video because it's using a bunch of embossing paste and different techniques. I was playing around, got real inky and real dirty, and it was so much fun with these embossing pastes by Wendy Vecchi. So let's just go ahead and get started. Now to start with, I want to go ahead and tint the embossing paste. Now this is just the regular white embossing paste by Wendy Vecchi. I love it. It's like frosting. And I'm so stingy with my embossing paste because I love it so much. I don't want to use more than I have to. So I'm actually going to be tinting it with Distress ink, and it's no wonder that I'm going to be using peacock feathers. For this first little trial here, little thing that we're going to do, I'm tinting it with 2 drips of the peacock feathers embossing paste, and I'm mixing it around. Now I'm working off of a Tim Holtz craft sheet because it's super easy to clean up. And so I'm mixing it around with my palette knife there. And then the first technique is actually going to be applying a super thin layer of embossing paste over a piece of cardstock. Now this is just Nina. Now this is a 110-pound cardstock. It's the newer cardstock that came out because I wanted to do something thick. Use something thick since I'm going to be doing embossing paste. So again, I'm going to be applying like the thinnest of layers down onto this card base, and then we're going to stamp with it. And this is going to be the most subtle effect of the 3 cards that I'm making today. So I'm kind of, again, smearing it around and picking up the excess off of the craft mat there, and then I'm smearing it around, trying to get as smooth as I can. Now again, the smoother or the thinner the layer of embossing paste you put down, the more subtle effect you're going to get. So keep that in mind, and you'll see what I mean when I move forward on in this video here in just a minute. So you can't get much smoother than that, and I did my best not to waste any of the paste either. I just love how easy and fun it is to tint embossing paste. You can use different ink refills. You can actually use ink pads. You can use paints to tint. There's a lot of different options there on how to tint your embossing paste. So if you've not tried it, getting white is probably what I would suggest you do first, because then you can play around with the colors. Now this is just a background stamp from Hero Arts, and I'm going to apply the cardstock to the stamp just like I would any other day of the week. Now again, because this is a very thin layer of embossing paste, you're going to get a very subtle look. So I'm pressing and pressing and pressing. I'm trying to make sure that I don't shift that cardstock around all at the same time while trying to get that impression. And you can see the very subtle look that you're going to get from the paste. You see that cool background there? It's just so much fun, and because it's such a thin layer of embossing paste, you can go over the areas that you didn't get an impression just by pressing down, and that's what I'm going to be doing here. There's a couple places that just didn't pick up any impression. I either missed it or didn't press hard enough, and again, because this is the thin layer, you can go ahead and you've got some wiggle room here. Now with embossing paste, you need to clean right away, so go to the sink, get your tools, get your mat, get your stamp, and clean it off with some warm water. And here's the look after it dries of the subtle background there. Isn't that cool? I just think it is so stinking cool. So now we're going to basically do the same thing, but this time we're going to add a lot more embossing paste. And we're going to do the same stamp, and you're going to see the different look that you get because you add more embossing paste to your card base. So again, I'm using peacock feathers here, 2 drops. Wanted to kind of keep the colors the same so you could see the difference between the two, and I'm mixing it around. Now again, paints, distress inks, you can smush some ink down onto your craft mat. If you don't have that, you can do an acrylic block or a piece of plastic or a plastic plate, something like that, and mix it all around until you get the color that you want. You can make your own colors by adding a couple of different ink refills or ink pads. Just play around because I love embossing pastes. I love them. So anyway, as you can see, I'm smearing around a very thick layer this time. Not being so stingy with the embossing paste this time. I want to get as much as possible onto this sheet. And I'm not really worried about smoothing it out either. So I'm just smearing it around with my palette knife. If you don't have a palette knife, you can use edge of a cardstock. You can use a credit card, Starbucks card, just anything with a flat, smooth surface. Now I'm using that same ink pad, and as you can see, I've got a pretty thick layer there. Do your best not to shift. It's going to be very easy to shift right here because there's so much embossing paste on the card. So press as much as you can. Look how inky my hands are, and I don't care. If you don't like getting your hands dirty, then don't try this technique or wear gloves. But I don't care if my hands get all dirty. It doesn't bother me. And when you lift it up, look. Isn't that cool? So obviously you get a lot more of a textured look here. And here it is all nice and dry. It's cool. It's so stinking cool. Now this last card here, card base, is probably my favorite technique here. We're going to, again, tint some embossing paste, and we're going to apply it with a stencil that you've seen many people do. I've done it in other videos as well. And I'm going to use 1 drop of the picked raspberry reinker here. So I'm working with distress ink refills because I like the colors, but again, use whatever you want, whatever you have on hand. Now the more ink you add, obviously the darker color you will get, so keep that in mind as well. So I'm taking the stencil, that's the mini blazonry stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere it down to the craft mat with some masking tape that I had over there. And I'm going to go ahead and start spreading around my embossing paste over the stencil. So neat, so cool. I love making your own custom color embossing pastes. And the Wendy Vecchi embossing pastes are fantastic. They come in silver and white, and you can get a crackle embossing paste. There's a whole pearlescent embossing paste. There's a lot on the market out there, and I do recommend her embossing pastes very much. So anyway, I've got that. I'm smoothing it out, making sure that I've got good coverage over the stenciled areas there, making sure I've filled in all of the design there, keeping it smooth. And now I'm taking, this is Honeycomb by Impression Obsession. This is a little background image. And you can see I did not peel up my stencil. Keep your stencil there and then take your stamp and press it into the stencil and the cardstock. I'm pressing, I hope you don't see my head. I think I'm in my pajamas while I'm filming this video, just so y'all know. And when you lift it up, ooh, 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 isn't that neat? Now it's important to use a stencil that's got a lot of open spaces, and then it's important to use a stamp that has a lot of small images to get the design there. But look at that. That's my favorite. I'm going to be using that a lot. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? And the embossing paste gives you all that dimension. It's so neat. I just love it. Now, to be honest, I didn't think about how I was going to put a card together. I didn't think about a sentiment or anything like that. So, of course, when in doubt, break out some die cuts, or in this case, I printed out some of these images from my silhouette. And we're going to go ahead and adhere them down that way. I'm not going to assemble the whole card on camera because, to be honest, I did this over the course of the day in between when my daughter would let me kind of get it finished. But anyway, to color the sentiments and the speech bubbles, I just wanted to show you what I did. I smushed some distress ink down onto my craft sheet and squirted it with some water, and then I'm rubbing the paper through the watered up distress inks to create my backgrounds there. I added a couple of different colors in, but I just wanted to show you quickly how I did that. And then we'll go ahead and assemble the card. Now there's 3 cards here total, and I wanted the backgrounds, obviously the embossing paste, to be the star of these cards. So this is what I ended up doing. So this is the first card here. I ended up cutting off that little hello at the top because it was so intricate when it got wet. It was all kind of gross anyway. And then I popped it up on foam dimension and added a lot of glossy accents. On this card, this is the subtle of the 2 backgrounds, so the thinnest layer of embossing paste. I just gave it a little border with my silhouette and then popped the love up on dimension as well. And then finally, this is the last card that had the thicker layer of embossing paste on the background. I added that cute little bunny from Mama Elephant and popped it up on lots and lots of foam dimension, and that was it. So I had so much fun making this. Thanks so much for watching.